testifying. Appreciate you taking the time to help us out here today. I represent the great state of Nebraska, and in Nebraska, we have skilled nursing facilities and assisted living facilities that are scattered throughout our state, and it's incredibly important to take care of the some 20,000 people who require care in the 500 different facilities that we have. And they can get that care for about $3,875 a month. Anybody who is providing assisted living services in the state of Nebraska that has 4 or more residents is designated as an assisted living facility that is regulated by the state and it's licensed. While I was governor, I signed into law a Assisted Living Facility Act to update the standards and the requirements that we have for our assisted living facilities. They're just absolutely critical, especially in rural parts of Nebraska, and to be able to help take care of people. And we want to make sure that we continue to have that service for our folks. And Ms. Simpkins, as you know, assisted living facilities, as I mentioned, are regulated at the state level, which allows states flexibility to be able to be responsive to local consumer demands. Are there any states in particular that are doing an exceptionally good job that we can draw lessons from? States you say, hey, they've got some good programs or things that we should be adopting across the country?
Well, I can speak for the states in which we operate. Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio have exceptional programs. And with that, Senator Ricketts, one of the things we noted in reporting, all of those states will require reporting of any of the incidences that were talked about previously, which is very important.
Are there other characteristics, though, that you think has led, or some of the approaches that you say that these states are doing a good job? What are they doing right? What are the things that, so you mentioned the reporting, that's obviously an important factor. Are there other things they're doing that you say, hey, this is why they have such good systems? This
is why there's a good system, because we have access within a state, and a state that is where assisted living is regulated under the state, and I'm going to talk particularly about home and community-based service, access to the regulators, access to families, access to everybody who, you have this local model that can create and innovate and come up with best practices. And I'm a big proponent, let's share our best practices, because there is nothing proprietary when it comes to caring for a senior and caring for somebody. And that's what those states are doing well. My fear is if you move those conversations further away, we'll no longer have those things. The states in which we serve, and I'll talk about Indiana specifically, the state program, Medicaid waiver program, and regulations are really dynamic. They promote and encourage having a local model where there's collaboration and there's innovation. And that's where we come up with best practices. So that, I would say that is also a model.
Great. Well, hey, thank you, because that actually leads into another question I have then. Last May, this committee held a hearing that highlighted the strained nursing home inspection system. And as you know, nursing homes are regulated at the federal level and are heavily regulated by the federal level. Anyway, so if assisted living facilities are subject to the same sort of one-size-fit-all federal type regulation, what can we do as lawmakers to ensure that assisted living facilities don't have the same sort of problems we're seeing in skilled nursing facilities? How do we protect that, what you talked about, that local model and best practices?
Well, from the state level, we encourage all of the states. So the things that we were talking about, if we even just talk about reporting and the reporting of those critical events, reporting those up through the federal government. Under the HCBS services, each state has really an obligation to report up in order to continue to have their federal funding. They also are well aware of the transparency that comes from and the opportunity. Once those things, the states report up, we have a transparency and the opportunity to see what home and community-based services are doing across the nation, and we'll have a window and more models that we can see, because I'm sure there's more states that are doing it well. I just can't speak to those today.
So, but getting back to the idea of, like, if you have the federal government that's regulating these things, how do we preserve that ability of local folks to be able to really tailor how they're doing the regulation to make sure that we're not pushing a one-size-fit-all answer?
There's been, we need to, from our perspective, we need to tell our story much better. There are really good stories to tell from a state perspective under home and community-based services, and we need to do a better job of talking about those stories and the things that are going on within the states, the innovation that has happened, the times providers have been asked to sit at a table before there's a rule change, and not just ask for comment, but sit face-to-face with somebody and say, if this rule changes, how does it impact the resident that you're caring for and your workforce who is caring for that resident.
Great, so that interaction with directly with the people who are doing the job
Yes.
before rule changes are made with the regulators, so that we don't have unintended consequences with regard to the rules that are made that will harm the care that's being delivered in assisted living facilities. Is that fair?
That's fair, Senator, and I like the way you put that. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ricketts, thank you. And we'll turn next to Senator Warnock.